Now this illustration deals with raceway systems, not cable systems, but raceway systems, in accordance with Articles 342, 344, 348, 350, and 352. So that kind of picks up your raceway systems that we would use. And notice to the left, we can notch and run the conduit in a notched system. And we're talking about the frame members, wood being notched. And notice you don't need any further protection. The metal conduit is considered protecting the conductors that are pulled through the raceway system. And notice you could use, if it's a cable, then you would use a 1/16 of an inch thick plate. But here it's not required over the notched area because you're using a metal raceway system in accordance with 300.4, A as in Apple, 2, exception 1. And you can say, well, you know, Jim, we did what you're saying, but the authority having jurisdiction still required that thick plate, 1/16 of an inch. Well, that may be so, see, by ordinance, by the state, county, or city electrical ordinance amendments to the code, or it may be they saw something you didn't see. Maybe you used EMT in the authority having jurisdiction. So, well, I've seen nails driven through EMT, which you know, if you hit it right in the center. So again, we have to work with the authority having jurisdiction. But where I've seen a problem with this was when EMT was used, with the authority having jurisdiction, but 90.4 would require that thick plate installed, as you see there, in accordance with 300.4A2, the exception 1, either they'd use it or they wouldn't. So the illustration to the left is illustrating framing members, raceways installed in notch members, and the 1/16 plate is not required without the authority having jurisdiction by electrical ordinance, state, county, or city amends the code and requires it. Now notice we show rigid metal conduit there. So you don't need that plate by code, 344.30. And see, again, this is why I'm saying as an electrician, we have to know Article 300 because it sets the rules for those wiring methods downstream from Article 300. The general rules are there. And notice the framing members are in accordance with 314.23A through C that we previously looked at for cables, but we're notching using a metal conduit in accordance with 300.4A2. So we have the call-outs with the reference so you can read it for yourself. You don't have to take Jim's word for it, my word, or anybody's word for it. Read it for yourself and see if you have the same interpretation as I do or the authority having jurisdiction. Now to the right, we have supports in accordance with 342.30 and 344.30. Rigid metal conduit say an IMC. So we have to support those within 3 foot of a box and every 10 foot. However, based upon the size of the conduit, we would review, say, table 344.30B2 for rigid metal conduit, and the distance could be further than 10 foot between supports based upon the size of the conduit. Now, some of you know I've been an electrician as well as designer. I've made a lot of installations, and I was always taught that what kind of wire you're pulling. Aluminum wire is a lot lighter than, say, rigid, supporting copper. Copper is very heavy. Aluminum, you know, you could get into a percentage, and it's a large margin of percentage lighter if you use aluminum. So these support rules may work fine. But if you should be using copper and they're large copper conductors, you may want to put a few little extra supports so that it doesn't come down due to weight and so forth. So this is just, a recommendation. Now notice rigid metal conduit, IMC, or EMT is what we're talking here. But remember, EMT is a tubing. It's not like rigid conduit or IMC conduit. So kind of keep that in mind. And this illustration now is illustrating Raceway systems, either notched as you see to the left, or just plainly supported on a wall or surface as you see to the right. And that's what this illustration is illustrating to the viewer.